Welcome to the Mac Power Users. I'm David Sparks. Stephen couldn't make it today, so we've got a little bit of an Automators Takeover. Welcome back to the Mac Power Users. Rosemary, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, David. Thanks for having me back. And I know Stephen is secretly just really scared that we're going to automate everything in his house. So that's obviously why he's not here this week. That's why he booked this week as vacation, right?
Yeah, exactly. For Rosemary Orchards on the show, I think most folks know you, Rose, but for those who don't, Rose and I ran a show called Automators on the Relay Network for several years. That show retired late last year. And I knew Stephen was going to be out. I said, this is great. It gives me a chance to bring my old pal Rose in, and we can talk about automation type topics, shortcuts. And also, Rose, who is a developer, has a new application on the market. Tell us about your new app, Rose.
Yeah, so it's called Capsule, and it is a medication tracker. And the purpose behind it was to really make medication tracking really easy and in your face in a good way. Because the problem that a lot of people have with the Apple Health app is it's kind of hidden, like finding your medications and logging them and so on and so forth. And it just gets a little bit messy, and there's not really ways to do a lot of the things that you want to do with it. So, about 5 years ago, believe it or not, two friends and I sat down and started trying to make an app together. And we started building Capsule. And then a few things happened along the way. Let's call them side quests. But yeah, we finally got around to releasing it. So it's got tags. So if you have a pet or you're a carer or you have children, then you can use tags to organize things between, different animals and people. Or you can use tags to organize things between, different things that you might be managing with medication. It has schedules or interval-based medicines. So you can say, hey, I want to take this at 9:30 every day, or I want to take this every 6 hours, or just there is no due date. I'll just take this when I need. Minimum intervals, all sorts. Yeah, it's something we're really proud of. I'm really excited to actually have released out into the world.
I love that I can track my meds and my dog's meds in the same app,
Mm-hmm.
Rose. But
Yeah.
we're going
Yeah.
to talk about more about later. I want to kind of get into the development process because that's a side of you that
Mm.
I haven't got to talk to you about much. So I definitely want to talk about that. But first thing is we're fresh off of WWDC 2025. You and I both love automation, and I thought
Mm-hmm.
it was time to do a full audit of what are we getting this year in shortcuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of starts with everybody's favorite keyword. I know it's a keyword that we kind of wish that sales would stop talking about at work, but it's AI
Yeah.
because there is just AI everywhere. But I like the way that this has been done because it's very much an optional extra. Like if you're there going, okay, no, I can't use AI for, work reasons, which, I have to use specific AIs at work. I can't just use any old Google Gemini, ChatGPT. I have to use the specific ones for work. Or, you're just a little bit wary of it right now, then you don't have to use these actions. But I think it's really nice the way that they have been added as shortcuts actions. So, we've got things like writing tools and so on, which has, I believe, made its way into shortcuts for the first time.
Yeah. I mean, last year they announced Apple Intelligence and, they got some of it launched, not all of it. And, there's been a lot of drama around that. People have changed jobs and a lot of us are frustrated that, Siri didn't get further last year. But
Mm.
the thing they did this year with shortcuts is actually really good because they brought the Apple Intelligence Toolkit to us users in shortcuts, and
Yeah.
it's actually as users we're getting more Apple Intelligence goodness than developers are because you can access them all. They created an action where you can basically run an Apple Intelligence query, and then you can use it against the built-in, artificial intelligence on device. What they call it, the foundation model, I believe is the term Apple uses for it. And
Hmm.
but they also have it where you can send a query off to Apple's private cloud compute. And that's something they announced last year. It's a server farm that provides Apple Intelligence or AI LLM services in a completely anonymous way, which you don't get with any of the frontier models. So you can have a locally, or you can send it to ChatGPT if you want to. So they've got basically all three layers there that you can do. So as users now, we can add an artificial intelligence query or an LLM query to our shortcut with a single action, and we have granular control, whether it's just done on device at Apple's own PCC server or all the way up to ChatGPT. And I feel like that's not to be understated. That gives us a lot of power as users.
Yes, it really does. And one of the things that people have been doing, and I've been seeing quite a bit of, is people are giving the same prompt to all three models
Yeah.
to see which one gives them the best kind of result for what it is they're looking for. Because of course, all of this is really subjective. But I feel like it's really nice that you have this option. And also, there is that magic action for with where you can say, hey, ask me every time what I would like, which model I would like to run. So you tap and hold on the kind of model so that you can then choose in a context dependent way. Like, oh no, like I think that the thing that I've decided to request of an AI model, this one will be better going to ChatGPT, or I'm on a plane at 30,000 feet. I think I'm going to use on-device model. Obviously, you could use airplane
Yeah.
mode to make that decision for you. But I think that it is just really nice that all of this is an option. And it also ties in quite nicely to, the other actions that they've added, because there's an entire Apple Intelligence app in shortcuts now. So if you swipe up the actions search bar at the bottom, and you scroll through alongside App Store, and Audible and Calendar and all those things, Apple Intelligence is right there. So they've made it very front and center, which is really nice to see.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this, we all gave a lot of grief to Apple for, how Apple Intelligence with that first year, but this to me is a shiny, bright spot in it. Have you experimented with this at all, Rose?
I have played with it a little bit in the first week that it came out. It's one of these things where I found that I don't really have that many use cases for AI yet. And every single time I've tried to use it to like do something faster for me, like especially code wise, it has not saved me time, which is just one of those really frustrating things. Where it's like, I would love to have this as a tool that I could use. But instead, I found it has been really good for like, helping me write my goals for achievement at work and things like that. That's where it has been really useful. But I haven't needed to write those because I wrote those before this came out. So yeah, I haven't used these actions for that yet. But yeah, what I am looking forward to though, David, is the writing tools actions that are coming into shortcuts. Because a lot of the time, I like to just word vomit text, brain dump things out, and then use shortcuts to magically reorganize this for me. And so I'm looking forward to having it do things like summarizing the text or adjusting the tone of the text. Or there's a really nice one here, which is make list from text,
Yeah.
which is great when I have accidentally, like, this is actually something I've been using. I've created a little shortcut action for this, where I grab the reminders which are associated with my grocery list, and present them as a list to myself. And then anything where you've got two things together, because I didn't quite formulate the words right when talking to the Apple lady, then I just select those and have it split them up into lists for me using the make list from text action. And that's actually been really useful. So yeah, I'm quite liking that as an action. And I think that these will just be really useful for everybody.
Yeah. So I've been doing some testing. I still think writing tools need work. I feel like they're still way too conservative in terms of like they only do the most basic grammar checking, as a years long Grammarly subscriber. I feel like Grammarly is maybe a little too aggressive and Apple is a little too conservative. I wish I could get something in between the two of them. And I keep hoping that
Hmm.
Apple will turn up the dial or give us the ability to to turn up the dial like some way, because what I find is that it will find clear errors, but it also, like, if I use the term very 3 times in a paragraph, it won't catch that. And I think that is, uh, that's no good. I need it to do stuff like that. But I have hope. But going back to the model implementation, I've been testing them. Like you, I've been testing these things. But I found that, one of the questions is, what is your favorite model? I mean, what are you doing with these LLMs that you can maybe move into Apple's private system? And one of my favorite prompts is to ask it to ask me thoughtful questions when I write something. And I find
Mm-hmm.
this really useful, not only for like journal entries, but also blog posts. Just say, I'm going to write a thing. I'm going to give it to you. I don't need you to rewrite it for me, but I want you to ask me 5 thoughtful questions about what I wrote. And
Yes.
oftentimes when I do that, it'll prompt me to add something to the blog post. Like I miss something obvious because I take things for granted sometimes when I write, and I find that the LLMs do a good job of kind of like taking me back down to, well, what if the reader doesn't know what that means, kind of thing. And with the journaling entries, I find that it asks me to reflect more on things that happened, which sometimes I don't do
Yes.
when I journal. And then I'll go back and I'll address it in the journal entry. Again, I'm not having it write for me, but I'm having it come up with questions. Now, when you
Mm-hmm.
want it to write for you, you need a very powerful LLM. Like, I don't even think like most of the chat GPT models are really sufficient for it. In my experience, Claude is probably the best for that if you want to do that. But I don't want that. I just want thoughtful questions. And when I compare the
Yes.
thoughtful questions that private cloud compute asks me compared to something like Claude or ChatGPT, they're in the ballpark. I mean, sometimes I might prefer the questions from the larger frontier LLM, but at that point, I'm also having to send my work product or my even journal to some server out in the world, and sacrificing a tremendous amount of privacy. And now I don't have to do that. I can just send it to private cloud compute. I get some good questions. And as soon as I figured that out, I've been using it throughout the whole beta. So I feel like this is going to be really useful for me. I've built a lot of those thoughtful, like reflection type prompts now into shortcuts where you just take
Mm-hmm.
the contents of your clipboard, add the prompt, send it to PCC, get an answer back, and then go update your document.
Yes. Yeah. No, I really like that. And I think this is one of those things as well where for some people it's really clear. Like I met somebody the other day, and he was talking about how he's looking at buying a camper van. And over here in the UK, we have MOT tests, which a car or vehicle has to pass every year. And it basically gives you a list of like what are the problems with the vehicles or warnings with the vehicle and so on. And what he did is he was telling me he fed the entire history of this into, he actually was using Google Gemini for this and asked it, like, are there any problems that I should be aware of? And I think this is one of those things where it's like, it would never occur to me to do that because I am pretty fast at processing data personally. And I would just read through the history myself. But he clearly thought that this was a really great use of the technology. Absolutely, by all means, he seemed very happy. I'm glad that he had the tools available. But I think it's one of those things where when we see other people and they tell us what they're using this for, it will be much easier to understand what the use case is for ourselves. Because I had never thought of asking it to ask me thoughtful questions based on something I'd already written. And so I'm now going to use that as part of my writing my annual goals for work because they need to be in a specific format. Um, for that because that was a really great use of AI for me. And I actually think I've just realized I'm going to London on Friday and I am going to ask it to look over my packing list for a day out and see if there's anything that I've missed. Because I wouldn't want it to generate a packing list for me. That's fun. I have shortcuts for it. I'm that kind of nerd. It is one of those things where asking it to review what you've done, I think is actually really useful. And I think that, have you tried substituting writing tools with the use model actions instead and seeing if they give you better results?
No, I have not. I will try that though. Like, and you can send the writing tools off to ChatGPT, which obviously is always going to give you a pretty good result. So yeah, there's different ways to do it, but to me, the shortcut action is the goal. Like, well, another, like, because there's a great workflow where you can save directly to drafts from an app called Whisper Memos. You just dictate to Whisper Memos. You can even do it on your
Mm-hmm.
Apple Watch, and then you've got you can copy out of drafts, submit that to a shortcut, have it go do the PCC, the private cloud compute questions, get the response back, and then append it to the draft note. So you've got the questions at the bottom, and then you just stay in drafts and you go up and you finish it, and then delete the questions. So that's kind of the workflow I've been using, but
Mm-hmm.
I really like that this stuff is integrated with shortcuts. A couple other things with shortcuts and Apple Intelligence. One thing you can do is, because of the way shortcuts works and variables, you can use output as input. So you can take a response from one of these models and then feed it back to another question in the model. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people think about that, but that's absolutely possible now. One question I have for you, I've been wanting to talk to you. We don't get to do our regular show together, so I don't get to talk to you as much. There's a rumor out now, and this is kind of a little bit askew of what we've been talking about, that Apple's in negotiations with Anthropic and Claude to use Claude as like the underlying engine for Siri, at least temporarily, until they get their house
Mm-hmm.
together with their own LLM. What do you think of that?
I think that this is really interesting because, this actually kind of ties into some of the stuff that I've been doing at work. We have been trying to build, to use an analogy, we've been trying to build cars where you can swap out the engine and the driver doesn't notice. So we've basically just been like trying to build things so that if we change like a third party provider that we're using, so say for example we move from using Amazon to storage to using DigitalOcean. If we wanted to do that, then we could just change it in one place and everything would just, keep working and running, and it would be really quick and easy for us to do, which requires a little more upfront work, but ends up with a much better result for us long term for development and also for all the users of our product. And I personally think that building things to work with more LLMs would actually be really beneficial for Apple because language is funny. It's one of those weird things where you say sidewalk, I say pavement. Okay, we're both speaking the same language, but then you add in other languages and it gets really confusing. And I feel like some LLMs may actually handle foreign languages, specifically non-Latin alphabet-based languages, better long term. And that by integrating with third-party LLMs, Apple could actually learn a lot from doing that. Now, of course, ideally, they would do a private cloud compute option of all of these, where whatever it is that they're giving, like they're using as an interim solution, they can anonymize everything and keep it, within the Apple ecosystem. And I think it would be really interesting, and I think that it could end up with much better results for some people, at least. Maybe not for everybody. And it is one of these things where I don't know how many people would then go out of their way to change the LLM if that was given to them as an option. But I'm sure some people would, and I suspect it's more people than I would initially think. Like that random guy that I ran into the other day that was very excited telling me all about his use of Google Gemini, which, yeah, this is just one of those random moments where you find things out about the average person, the regular non-nerd person and how they're using technology. And it's fascinating. And I think that, LLMs and AI, in particular, like they have reached the mass markets in many places. So I think it would be smart for Apple to integrate a little more. But what do you think?
I agree. I think they need to do whatever it takes to make Siri good fast because they're out of time. I do think, however, they need to keep building their own and hopefully at some point have, own that technology enough that they don't have to use somebody else's. But if it means that we'll get the smarter Siri a year earlier or 2 years earlier, by all means, do what you have to do at this point.
Mm. Yeah. It's one of these things where I don't know, like how much the average person, so not a Mac Power useless listener, not somebody who would have listened to Automators, I don't know how much they actually think Siri is bad. Like, I know there are memes about Siri being bad, but I also continually witness my parents talking to Siri and Siri saying, I found some results for that. And my dad being perfectly happy with that. He likes tapping on the thing and then going off and reading it. I showed him how to get the reader built into Safari to actually read out the page, which made his day. He does have dyslexia, so he struggles a little bit with reading and writing sometimes. But yeah, like, yeah, I wonder how many people actually actively think that Siri is bad, or maybe they're just being asked the question of, do you think it could be better? Which, I mean, who's going to say no to something like that? Like, yes, everything can be better. I just don't know how, and they can't necessarily articulate it. But a better Siri would definitely be welcome from my perspective. I asked it to turn on the shelf lights earlier, and it told me that it didn't have lights in the shed. So, that it would be nice if my HomePods understood the word shelf versus shed every once in a while.
Like my whole family thinks Siri's bad, but it could be because of their relationship to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I put myself out on the limb and, yell out to the HomePod and ask it something simple, and it gets it drastically wrong in front of them. So they've
Yep.
witnessed its many failures, maybe because I try to use it like Apple says we should, you know.
Yep.
But either way, I do think that, look, I understand that they're building their own model, and I have faith that they're going to get it right based on my experiences with PCC. But we can't wait any longer. Siri's got to get better now. And if they've got to license something else for a while, then so be it, in my opinion. This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Squarespace. Just go to squarespace.com/MPU and save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code MPU. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform designed to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or scaling your business, Squarespace gives you everything you need to claim your domain, showcase your offerings with a professional website, grow your brand, and get paid all in one place. I've been a Squarespace subscriber since the beginning. I am currently a Squarespace subscriber. What I like about it is the combination of powerful features with ease of use, because with Squarespace, you can have your cake and eat it too. If you want to make sure your website gets discovered, Squarespace has the latest SEO tools. Nobody wants to build a beautiful website only to have nobody see it. That's why every Squarespace website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions and auto-generated sitemap and more, so more people find your site through search engine results. And if you want to know how good that site is doing, they make analytics easy. You can keep track of the stats that matter with an intuitive built-in analytics tool. It makes it super easy for you to review website traffic, learn where to focus engagement, and track revenue from bookings, invoices, or product sales. Life is complicated. There aren't that many no-brainer decisions out there, but getting started on the web, there is a no-brainer decision. And it's just go to Squarespace and get signed up. And if you go to squarespace.com/MPU, you get a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use that offer code MPU to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Once again, that is squarespace.com/MPU. The offer code MPU to get that 10% off your first purchase and to show your support for the Mac Power Users. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of the Mac Power Users and Olive Relay. Rose, one of the things that we got a lot this year, I feel like, is we got a boon on the Mac. Every year with shortcuts, back when we were making Automators, there were years where one platform did better than the other. I feel like this year, the Mac really got some great features. I mean, so the AI stuff is across the board, of course, but the Mac kind of caught up a bit this year.
Yeah, I am finally going to be able to answer people's questions in Shortcuts Corner on iOS today when they ask about how they can trigger things on the Mac without saying, so you're going to need to get like Keyboard Maestro or something like that so that you can have
Yeah.
these run automatically based on X. Now, Keyboard Maestro and so on still going to be a great solution. And one of these things that I like to do is the slow switch over. I will never, for something where it's actually like critical, like for example, backing up all of my podcast files, I will never just be like, yep, cool, I'm just changing everything over and we will live with it if it goes wrong, because if it goes wrong, that could be really bad. But I will be creating new automation triggers for things and slowly switching things over. And also, it kind of doesn't feel like as much of a chore as much as it's a fun thing. I know that if I start switching over my automation triggers, I'm going to be rewriting a lot of my automations. And like 6 months later, I'll look up from my computer and I have a bad back and I won't have eaten in 3 days and be like, what happened? How is it Christmas? So yeah, I will be slowly switching over it, but they've given us some really great automation triggers, including finally date and time. So you don't have to do that weird hacky workaround with the Apple Calendar app anymore.
Yeah. And so just to break them down, we got date and time, system events, power and battery triggers, file and folder triggers. So like folder actions, like if you add a file to a folder, that can
Mm-hmm.
trigger a shortcut.
Yep.
Or if you modify a file, that can trigger a shortcut. Also, when you connect to an external drive, we always had the Wi-Fi one, but we got that now without the confirmation dialog. In fact, all of them now have the checkbox that we've historically got on mobile devices that says, "Hey, when this happens, just automatically run it," instead of showing me a box that says, "Oh yeah, I see you did this. Do you want me to run the shortcut?" Now, none of us want that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
like I created an automation to be asked
Yes.
if yeah, it's like the people where you say like, hey, can you, give me a hand and grab some stuff? They go, what stuff? And it's like, there's a really clearly marked, defined area with stuff in that needs moving.
Yeah.
And they keep asking you like, does this go over here? It's like, we're moving all of this stuff from this box into this box. Like it doesn't get simpler than that. And macOS is there going, so,
Yeah.
where's the box? Every single time. But
Yeah. On the iPhone and iPad, they had a thing that said run immediately or after confirmation. They've got
yeah.
that now. They've got that now on the Mac. Hooray. So all of your automations, your automatic automation shortcut triggers are better now. And there's a bunch more. And you're right, because some of the stuff I could only automate through Keyboard Maestro historically. Like if I wanted to make a Wi-Fi trigger or a file-based trigger, I always had to do it in Keyboard Maestro. And honestly, for me, some of them are staying in Keyboard Maestro because Keyboard Maestro does a
Mhm.
bunch of other stuff that Shortcut still doesn't
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But for
Same with me and Hazel.
yeah, exactly. And but for some simple ones, this could absolutely work. Like the folder one is a good example. Like I've talked in the past how I have a Hazel one that when I put a receipt into the receipt folder, it sends a copy to my accountant. Like you could absolutely write that into a shortcut now. Like have an expense folder, have the shortcut monitor the folder. When it goes in, grab the file and email it to a person. That could be 100% automated now with no confirmation. Or, move it to another folder like a shared Dropbox or something. But yeah, this is great. And I feel like the Mac version of shortcuts was very much a slow boil. Like if you go back and listen to old episodes of Automators in that first year, it was pretty rough. But it's here now, and these triggers to me are kind of like the final piece of this that really makes shortcuts on the Mac a powerful automation platform.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just one of those things where it's always been really difficult trying to explain to people like, okay, so I know I'm showing you this thing and I know shortcuts exist on insert other device here, but that thing's not there. Like if I'm showing it to you on an iPhone, do this on an iPhone and like don't try and do it on a Mac because like every single time it's just like, oh yeah, no, this just works slightly differently or this isn't there. And like an obvious action that doesn't work on an iPad or a Mac is the vibrate action because they don't have the hardware to vibrate.
Sure.
But other things are just not as intuitive to go like, oh, obviously this isn't here because I'm on Mac OS. And so, it's really good that automations, because let's face it, most people have a Mac that a good chunk of the time isn't necessarily doing things, but they certainly don't mind it waking up to do things. Like Power Nap has been a feature of Mac OS since. This is where we need Stephen. He chose a really bad week to be on holiday because I don't remember when Power Nap first got introduced to macOS. But that's the feature where it just wakes up and it fetches your email and it does time machine backups while it's asleep. And it just uses a small amount of battery to just go like, hey, I'm just going to check in on the internet and make sure that you're as up to date as you can be at this point in time. So that when you then lift the lid of your laptop or you first wake up your device, it doesn't immediately have to go, okay, you have 0 emails. And then 30 seconds later, you have 132 unread emails. It's like, whoa, okay, where did those come from? Where is it going from 100 to 132? Doesn't feel quite as in your face because, it's been periodically fetching in the background. And I feel like people wouldn't mind if, automations were there as well. We had them for AppleScript to an extent. So it's really good that we're actually finally getting them for shortcuts now. So thank you, everybody who has filed feedback to Apple to say, where are my automations on macOS? Like, this is missing because we finally got it.
They also did a good job of integrating shortcuts with some of the other historical automation platforms on the Mac. So, they've got the services menu in the menu bar. Now, any shortcut can be exposed in the services menu. Quick actions got added 4 or 5 years ago, and now you can expose a shortcut in a quick action. It's just check a box. It's really easy. And I just, I think that should be there. If you're going to have those systems, shortcuts should fit into them. That's, it's kind of surprising it took this long, but, it takes time to do this stuff. One other thing, I guess I'll say shortcuts adjacent, is the new Spotlight automations, the quick keys. Have you had a chance to play with those much, Rose?
No, because unfortunately I've needed to keep both of my devices on the stable macOS to do development things with until recently. So I haven't had a chance to upgrade it yet, but I'm really excited by the fact that app intents have they're not priority one, but they are like right there in Spotlight, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really good. And, just like we're seeing widgets be used across multiple platforms and contexts, app intents are getting the same treatment, right? Because, you and I were there on the Automators podcast when app intents were announced, and everybody was saying, okay, what is this for? Well, it turns out it's for shortcuts, but it's also going to be for Apple Intelligence, and now it's also for Spotlight. And so you've got the ability to run these like token actions in Spotlight. I think it's going to be very popular with people like your dad, like, people who are never going to open shortcuts, but it's going to give them automation. And what we need to teach them is that you can add shortcuts to those because they're not there by default when you go in, or at least at this point in the betas. So if you've got, like for me, my wife, I'm thinking there's 2 or 3 things she does often that this is the kind of automation she could do. Trigger Spotlight, type 2 letters, and like make something that she does all the time faster. I think this is absolutely something I can teach her. But you just got to figure out what they're using and give them shortcuts that are memorable to them so they can trigger it even faster. And I think this will be really helpful for kind of more novice automators.
Yes, what I've done for my dad for some things, because he has a couple of things that he does like 3 or 4 times a year, like back up all of the photos en masse to his their Synology that I set up for them. And like it's a multi-step process. And so I have shortcuts added to his dock. Which, he keeps all of his applications in the dock all the time, the ones that he uses at any rate. And so I added a couple of shortcuts there as well, to just walk him through things and do some of the steps automatically as much as possible. And that has made his life much easier. And so, I'm really looking forward to the fact that this is going to be much easier to sort out and Spotlight for everybody, because I think that'll be easier for my dad too. He's got an entire series of instruction manuals he's written himself for things that he does.
I like that.
And so I'm hoping that, I'll be able to like, there was a Apple book authoring app, wasn't there? Like iBook Author or something like that.
I used it.
And I kind of want to do something similar to that, but with shortcuts for him, so that it can just like pop up like, okay, cool. I've done step 1, 3, and 9 So, and just check those off and be like, okay, you need to do this, and this for me. And then hopefully that will just make everything much easier.
I would recommend you do that with Apple Notes because you can
Oh, yeah.
have it where the checkbox is just you can toggle them. And
Yeah.
one other thing we got with the new Spotlight is now Apple Notes are much more searchable. So he could get
Yes.
to the list just by hitting, Command Space and type the name of the list. And that probably would be
Exactly.
very accessible to him.
Yes, and I can share the folder back with myself, which is something that I'm currently doing through
Yes.
iCloud anyway,
Yeah.
because every so often he makes an update to his instructions, and whenever that happens, I get a little notification. I just pop in and I just check, just to make sure that, like, he's found a way to solve the problem. But the way to solve the problem is not necessarily like the easiest way, because he does like solving his own problems. I'm very happy to let my parents solve their own tech problems
Yeah.
as much as possible, but every so often they do like to overcomplicate things. And if folks have ever read those IT stories about the person who is backing up their entire folder every day into a zip file, and it started out really small and then it suddenly got really big really quickly because they were backing up the backups
Yes.
inside
Yes.
of the zip folder
Yeah.
every day. Like, that is the sort of thing that, like, my dad might unintentionally do, not realizing that it was going to cause him a problem. And so that's why I just like to try and keep an eye on it. I feel like shortcuts and just sharing things like the instruction manuals back and forth can really help with that, just to make sure that people don't accidentally cause themselves their own problems while allowing them to be independent.
Well, while I think the Mac got the lion's share of the good stuff this year, there is some improvements on mobile too. They added Apple Intelligence to the share sheet. Again, I think
Mm.
this is something that's going to help more novice users, but it looks at what your payload is. So if you've got text, image, or audio, and it's going to auto
Yes.
recommend actions based on what you're serving it on the share sheet, and
Yes.
that makes sense. I think that's cool.
It's logical, isn't it? Like, if I'm sharing a piece of audio, I need totally different actions for that, for compared to, say, text. So yeah, I think this is just a nice way of getting people into shortcuts a little bit more as well.
One that I've only confirmed exists and not really figured out how to use or figured out a use for is this visual intelligence thing.
Mm.
Now they've got the visual intelligence on a screenshot, so you can feed that screenshot and ask about it to a shortcut. And I'm just not sure what I would do with that. I guess maybe plant identification, but it's already doing that for me. So I need to wrap my head around what the use cases for that one.
I mean, you could get plant care instructions for that kind of plant based on
Yeah,
what's
I
in the image,
guess.
I guess. But yeah, it's one of these things where we need to crowdsource some ideas from other people. And once you've got a couple of ideas, then the ideas just flow, don't they?
Yeah. And then on home screen widgets, they can reveal AI output in line. So I think this is going
Hmm.
to be something we're going to see from third parties. You know,
Yes.
I don't know if it would make sense for your app to say, like, hey, tell me what this medication's side effects are. I guess you wouldn't want to do that because you would rely,
No,
yeah, you can't give that advice. Yeah,
no, we're steering very clear out away from giving people medical advice, and
sure.
so on. Like, even if you set up like a minimum dose interval, so like it's something that you shouldn't take more frequently than every 4 hours, we'll still allow you to do it. We'll just warn you when you go to log it, like, hey, you said you can only take this every 4 hours, but it's been X time since you last took it. Are you
Yeah,
sure?
yeah,
So that, yeah. But like, we can't give people medical advice. We're not doctors or physicians or
sure.
pharmacists. So yeah, it's just one of those things where, like, we also don't really want AI to start telling
No, I
people like,
agree.
oh yes, you can take dog medication for this problem that you're having. Like, please don't do that. That would be really bad.
Yeah, that's one of those things where, like, halfway through me talking it out, I realized it was a dumb idea. I do think that, like, there are third party apps that, maybe something less critical than medication, where you could take an AI output and feed it into a widget. Maybe something on, I don't know, like a white noise app, like, dark noise, if they were
Yeah.
going to do something like that, or maybe a weather app, something, I don't know. There are some real interesting options there. Widgets continue to get more powerful every year.
Yes, yeah, they do. And I think that this is really great as well because, some of the stuff behind widgets is actually the app intent stuff that powers shortcuts. That's also the same stuff that, allows you to add control center actions and lock screen actions. Because, yeah, last year we got the whole custom lock screen actions, which it's great. And now, yeah, all of this, it's all tying together. It feels like they had a grand plan. Like this was going to be like a full-on three-part opera. And we only saw like the little like mini like hand puppet show outside for quite a long time. And now we've been led into the auditorium and we can see like, oh, there's an ice cream stand and there's a bar where they're selling like pretty drinks and things like that. Like, okay, this is gonna be big. This is gonna be huge. And yeah, we're still only seeing like the parts. We've seen the front cover of the program, but we've not seen any of the details just yet, beyond the actions that we currently have available to us.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Indeed. Go to Indeed.com/MPU and join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. You just realized that your business needed to hire someone like yesterday. How can you find an amazing candidate fast? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites, and their sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your posts jump to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the right people you want faster, and it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data worldwide, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. What I like about Indeed is the way they take all of the difficulty out of hiring. You post your position, get some great candidates, make an excellent hire, and get on with work. It really is that easy. With sponsored jobs, there are no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. And how fast does it all happen? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you about Indeed, 23 hires were made, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of the Mac Power Users will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/MPU. So just go to Indeed.com/MPU right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Mac Power Users. Indeed.com/MPU. Terms and conditions apply. Are you hiring? Indeed is all you need. And our thanks to Indeed for their support of the Mac Power Users and all of Relay. So, Capsule, 5 years in the making. How does it take 5 years to make an app? What? Tell me about this.
You start with a really good idea, and then you get distracted by a side quest called Focus Cuts, which, for the folks who don't know, it's focus mode, context dependent shortcuts actions in your menu bar. So the idea being that you can say like, hey, when I'm in my work focus mode, the shortcuts in my menu bar, I would really like to be, this folder or this and this folder. But when I'm in my sports mode, I want it to be that and that instead. So, you can change which shortcut actions are available depending on your focus mode. A few other things happened. We're contracting on Pushcut, which has an automation server that runs on the iPhone. There's a Mac version in beta. Unfortunately, Alex Hay, creator of many great shortcuts apps, passed away, which was really, really sad. But we saw that happen and we went, okay, obviously this is terrible and tragic for his family, but also there's a lot of users of apps like Toolbox Pro, Automate, Logger, etc. out there. And so we reached out to his family as respectfully as we could and offered to take over the apps and buy them from them to continue to provide support. And that definitely took up a lot more time than we thought. We keep discovering new Toolbox Pro actions, despite the fact that we have an entire list of them. It somehow feels like every couple of days, it's like, wait, this is an action? I didn't know about this. So, we've been working on making sure that we know those from the inside as well as the outside, to, be able to adequately provide support and continue to maintain those apps so that they don't just disappear on everybody.
Yeah.
It was only towards the end of last year that we were there going, okay, it feels like we're no longer drowning every time a wave comes along. We have some time to put back into focusing on Capsule and shipping it. And the idea was to ship it before WWDC. Unfortunately, we ran into a couple of bugs in the last sort of round of beta testing there, and decided that actually we're not shipping this with that sort of bug. That's absolutely terrible. Let's fix this. And so we pushed it, and it came out just a couple of weeks ago as we record this. And it's been 5 years in the making. We briefly had more than 24 hours in a day, which caused a couple of problems. But it was a very entertaining moment when we realized why none of the recurring schedules were working. And it was because David, our primary developer on this, accidentally catered for people to have up to 32 hours in a day, which, definitely was not an expected side effect.
I'll tell you one thing. If you can ship an app that'll give me an extra 8 hours a day, I'm in. I'll subscribe.
Well, it's just one of those things where it's like, in hindsight, it was absolutely logical. We were working on a custom end of day feature, but the problem is the start of the day continued to be midnight. That turned out to be a bit of a problem mathematically, and caused some slight havoc. We shelved that feature and realized that actually the more important thing to work on for a medication tracker was schedules, because a lot of people just take this medication at 8:30 in the morning, this medication at 10, that medication at 5, and then this one at like 10 p.m. or something. And so we focused on schedules, which solved 99% of our problems actually with the app, but it did require a big rewrite, because just the way we had everything set up. And also we were trying to use Swift UI for everything, and Apple tells you as a developer, Swift UI is amazing, it's great, it's beautiful, it's easy to use, and all sorts. And every time you opened the app, all of the medications flew in tiles, which was a really cool effect, but it was slightly unsettling. And I apologize to my grandmother, but I tested this on her and it made her slightly motion sick. Now, bearing in mind, somebody else swiping between photos on a phone that they're showing her also makes her slightly motion sick. She's very susceptible to this sort of thing. But she tried it, even like holding it in her hand, and it was like, yeah, okay, it's a really cool visual effect, but we can't make this go away with Swift UI. So we had to revert back to the slightly older way of doing things there. That sort of thing ends up costing you time when you're really concerned about like the user experience and what the app looks like as well, because most of the apps that we work on are apps that people don't open. Like they maybe check what's inside the app a few times for like configuration, but then they never look at the app again. They're just doing everything through shortcuts. So this was a really big journey of trying to figure out, okay, how do we make something that looks nice? And anybody that's played with Capsule already, I'm sure you spotted this straight off the bat, David. You may have noticed it looks a little bit like shortcuts. That was my suggestion. I will completely own that, because we wanted something that was kind of pretty and tactile and big, easy buttons to tap. We took some inspiration from shortcuts there.
Well, I think it's really well designed and thoughtfully designed. You could tell when you get an app by a developer that really does think about the user experience, because so many apps, they just kind of ship them. They don't think about it. And this app definitely has another thing about the app that I really appreciate is the pestering nature of the reminders. It really,
Oh yeah.
I think that's important for medication, because you're doing something, the medication reminder comes up, you're like, look, I just can't do this right now. And with the Apple one, if you dismiss it, you'll forget to take it. And the way you guys did it, I think, was more annoying in a good way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We took some inspiration from Due there. So you can set up repeating notifications for overdue medications. And you can say like, okay, just nag me about this every minute, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, 30 minutes, every hour. But also, as well as global notifications, because we're aware that, like, not every medication is equal. Something that you take occasionally for a headache or your dog's flea treatment doesn't need to be the same as, say, medication you may take for your blood pressure, which,
Exactly.
probably you take more frequently. So for each medication, there are custom notification settings as well. So you can be like, okay, no, I want repeating reminders for this one turned on, but the dog's flea medication, like, that's kind of okay. I'm not so, I don't desperately need repeat notifications for that one.
I mean,
So
so,
yeah,
some people have medications. If you miss it, it's a big deal. And this
yeah.
is going to make sure that you don't do that. I really like the app. And I feel like, as your friend, I see you all over it, like the shortcuts look and stuff. It's like, and like, clearly I'm thinking, oh, yeah, Rose loves do. She added do like reminders. And it's like, it's just,
Hmm.
it's really nice. I think this was a space that needed a well-designed app for people who want, Apple's got a built-in free thing. It's fine. But if you really want, something that goes deeper, what you guys have done, I think that, scratches the itch. Now,
Thank you.
what do you think of the new, glass look? And like, it's interesting because your app is getting released as this is now in beta. Are you going to have to go back and
Hmm.
spend a bunch of time redesigning everything?
Yes and no. So, as much as we couldn't do everything in SwiftUI, which is what Apple definitely recommends developers do, we did try to still keep that modern SwiftUI look for things. To nobody's surprise, we've actually compiled all of our apps using the Xcode 26 beta, which is what allows you to compile the apps for iOS 26 or macOS 26. And yeah, we've had a look at them and they all seem to work pretty well. There's because we're this is one of the things that you have to decide as a developer. Am I going to sit down by hand and handcraft things like a menu across the bottom of the screen? Or am I going to use a stock component that's something that's been provided, like walking into a hardware store and buying something off the shelf? And one of the things that we continually try to remember, it's Snailed It, which is the name of the development company. Yes, we nail it slowly, hence the pun, is Apple is pretty good at signposting things. Years ago, they made a really big deal about layout stuff. And they went on and on about it at WWDC. And some apps listened and went, okay, Apple's clearly telegraphing something here. They're trying to tell us something with all of this, like custom, like dynamic layout stuff. So the idea is that you could have the same app on the iPhone and the iPad. And if the iPad was portrait, it would look pretty similar. It would just space things out automatically for you. Some people went the other way and said, nope, I'm going to handcraft this and push this in 5 pixels from the edge of the screen, and the next thing is going to be spaced 10 pixels away from that, and so on and so forth. The year after Apple released Dynamic Layout, they released Split Screen and Slide Over on iPad. And if you use Dynamic Layout stuff, you pretty much just had to recompile, and it worked. Everybody that had handcrafted everything with pixels had to sit down and redo everything to make it work. And so one of the things that we try to remember is Apple gives you things for a reason. Like, they're giving you a series of components to put together, and you can put them together in new, novel, and exciting ways. But if if you use the tools that they provide you, things become a lot easier. And the other thing is by using the tools that they provide you with, the app looks more familiar to users as well. Because one thing that we really had to keep in mind with Capsule in particular is A, people are going to be looking at the app, B, a lot of non-technical people are going to be looking at the app as well. Like people like my grandmother, who would never use Toolbox Pro. She doesn't know what a shortcut is, let alone what a shortcuts action is, or want more of those. But she is the sort of person who is using Capsule. And so we wanted it to be self-documenting and easy to understand and use. Like when you open it, it has medications at the bottom, history, and settings. Nothing's like hidden away there. And then it, groups the medications and things like that. And these are all, fairly stock things that we've used, which then means that when it comes to doing stuff like Glass UI, yes, we have to recompile the app. And we are absolutely going to have to make some tweaks to make things work for iOS 26 and the Glass look. But that Glass look is still, it's there and it will still be there when it releases in September, absolutely. But what we see, and especially what we saw in the very first beta versus what we get in September, can be two different things. Like, they're not going to be completely different. It's not going to be like light mode versus dark mode, but we've already seen things like the amount of the frosting of a slide over type thing changing and the opacity of things like the control center. So yeah, we're going to have to see a little bit exactly where that goes before we make any particular tweaks. But also, a lot of the users of Capsule are not necessarily people who are going to upgrade to iOS 26 the day it releases. Like, we absolutely want to be ready with all of the apps as soon as possible after it releases. But, at this point, it feels like we've got 200 apps, which we don't, but we still have quite a few apps. And getting all of them ready for release day when things keep changing from beta to beta it's pretty tricky. So we'll be aiming to get them all out as soon as possible for sure.
Well, it's funny because you guys are so historically making alpha nerd apps. Toolbox Pro is for people who want to get more out of shortcuts. You're not going to have a big overlap with people that buy Toolbox Pro and, presumably a lot of more senior citizens who need a medication tracking app.
It's one of those things where we have to, judge every app based on its user rather than ourselves. And that is surprisingly tricky to do. Like, we have to put ourselves in their shoes for everything.
Now, at the same time, a lot of your apps that you've released historically are more utility type apps where this is a, user facing app with an interface. As a developer, this is one of the first times you've had a big release like this. How's it feel? And
Yeah.
what were the big surprises?
I mean, it wasn't a big surprise, but it felt like a little bit of a letdown in a way, because on App Store Connect, which is Apple's developer portal, you don't see anything for like a month. So,
Okay.
like, we're not going to know for like a month if things are successful or not. Like, I checked, also the App Store Connect app has just been continually beach balling for me, which is really not helpful. But yeah, we've checked and we've got like download numbers and stuff like that. But it's just really difficult to know like how it's going. And because it's an app that has more mass market appeal, we'd love it to be going really well. But like, it's just one of these things where it's like we've thrown it out into the world and it's like, oh, cool. Right. So does anybody like it? Like, is it okay? And we've heard from some people. Stephen did a really lovely write up on release day over at 512 Pixels, and you posted about it in the Mac Sparky Labs. And like all of the emails that we've had from people have been like, "Hey, I would love this feature," or like, can I do this with it? And things like that. Like, the biggest request every single time is, can you sync with Apple Health? And it's like, when Apple gives us an API, we will 1000% be doing this. Until Apple gives us an API, it's not really possible. Like, we're investigating. They finally added a new API this year for like import and export from Apple Health. So we're investigating that to see like what we can do and how we can utilize that, because the last thing that we want to do is say, hey, absolutely, we're going to use this to do that, and then be completely unable to deliver on that. So we have to investigate what that does and the performance of all of those things and all of that stuff.
And you're dealing with people's medication, so you've got to be really careful. I mean, that's just
Exactly.
there's a high bar with this one. Well, I can't think of anybody I would want more to make an app like this to handle medication, because I know that you and the Snailed It team are very thoughtful and you guys work on this stuff really hard. So, Rose, congratulations on getting this one out to market. Again, check out Capsule if you're taking medication, or if your dog is taking medication, or if your friend is taking medication. The way the app is designed, you can actually share it. It's just kind of fun. But check it out. We'll put a link in the notes. Rose, we always like to finish up with the guest interviews, and you're a guest here on the Mac Power Users today, asking for a few of your favorite apps and services. You got anything out there that's just lighting you up lately?
Well, I have a completely random. It's actually a piece of hardware.
Okay.
And I'm holding it in my hand.
Is this
But
going to cost me
I
money?
have
That's my first question.
okay, it's $20, give or take, David. So I think this one is okay. I have an 8-bit dough micro in my hand. So this is a miniature Bluetooth game controller that you can connect to your iPhone or iPad. But you love a Stream Deck
I love a
or a
Stream
macro
Deck.
pad.
I do.
How about one of those for your iPad?
Okay.
Because this can be hooked up. So it has an app that you can download for iPhone or iPad, and then you can use it to reprogram the keys. And people use these as like macro pads for things like Procreate and so on. So you can have it do different things as like a bonus mini. It's got 16 keys on it. And I love this thing. So I have this primarily hooked up to my Kobo for page turning because like it's really great as a wireless remote and it's not one of those things that like clips on. So then you've got like something partially obscuring the screen and another controller in your hand, both of which need charging. But yeah, the 8-bit toe micro has 16 buttons. It's programmable. It's got 3 modes on the bottom. SDK, which I am 100% certain um, that they absolutely put it in that order, so it'd be standard developer kit. But yeah, so K is keyboard mode, which is what my mostly lives in. But yeah, it's a tiny little like micro pad for your iPad, or you could use it as a miniature game controller for playing Apple Arcade games if that's you. It's really cute. And obviously it pairs to an Apple TV as well because it's Bluetooth. And also you can use it with a games console, like a Nintendo Switch or a Steam Deck or whatever. But yeah, it's a macro pad for your iPad, and who doesn't want that?
Multi-purpose. I love it.
So another app that I'm going to recommend, and this is because I've gone into camping a lot recently, and I've been going camping again. I got a shiny new tent. I got a solar generator with solar panels because I'm that kind of nerd. But something that is really useful to know if you're going camping is how to tie a knot. And there's an app for that, of course. It's called Knots 3D, and they have things like essential knots, where you can learn to tie a prusik knot or a reef knot. They have boating knots, they have camping knots, caving knots, decorative ones, ones for neckties, scouts and guides ones, theater and film things. So, you know, if you need to learn to tie a backhand hitch, well, if you have Knots 3D downloaded, then you can learn to do that even if you have no signal, which, you know, if you're camping, I've definitely been camping in a few places where it's like, I have emergency SOS and that's it. So yeah, Knots 3D is definitely just a random app that it doesn't take up much space on my phone and it just lives there. And every so often I'm there going, no, I need to know how to tie a knot. And I just pull it out and figure out what kind of knot is most appropriate for the problem I'm trying to solve.
Rose, I am also a knot enthusiast, I will tell you.
Well, as long as you don't get too tied up, David, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Yeah, I see what you did there. I like being able to be somewhere with people and like they've got a long dog leash and then I just do some magic and then it's a short leash, right? Or just you
Yeah.
find all sorts of uses in day-to-day life if you just know a few nuts. That's a great pick. Okay, so everybody go check out that channel your inner Boy Scout or Girl Scout. I've got actually one I want to share because you made me think of it with the mini game controller. There's a young man in my life. He's 12. He's kind of nerdy, and he's kind of spent some time with us. He's a relative, and I got thinking I want to do something with him fun, and so I ordered off Amazon a retro game kit. It's an acrylic case, and it's a do-it-yourself soldering
Ooh.
kit. It's $19. And so if you've got a soldering iron and you know what you're doing, and he's just old enough that I think he could get into this. And I'm going to take him out in the
Yeah.
workshop and we're going to build this thing together. And then he's going to be able to take it home. And I don't know. I just thought it would be really fun to do this with him. You know, I keep talking about how I want kind of these kids to do some of the more hands-on stuff. And this is I found this by accident and I can't wait to make it with him.
Yes, this is much better than my similar suggestion. Because for a 12-year-old, spending $20, and if he's not that interested, it's not the end of the world. The alternative that I immediately thought of when I thought, well, what I thought you were describing to start with was the Picade Raspberry Pi arcade machine, which has got a 10-inch display, six
Yeah.
buttons, and a little joystick, and they're like $250. So yeah, the $20 version, definitely recommend that. Uh, but yeah, that's really cool. Oh, there was an 8-inch version, but it was $200 and it's discontinued. So
Okay.
yeah, 10% of the price, definitely worth it. And it sounds like fun.
I'm going to teach him how to solder, and
Yeah.
hopefully he can do a lot of it himself with me, kind of making sure he doesn't do anything dumb, and then
Yes.
he'll know he made it. And I kind of think that would be good. Anyway, so that's a little project we got going. Rose, where should people go if they want to keep up with you these days?
Well, the best place to go to find like all of the links to the places I am is rosemaryorchard.com, which has got like links to apps, books, podcasts, etc., and all the social media sites. Or if you want to find out about Snailed It stuff, that's over at snailedit.dev, SNAILED IT.dev. And that's got links to all of our apps and everything over there too.
Yeah, and we'll get links in the show notes. But if you want to go straight to Capsule, it's capsuletracker.com. You can get there straight away. We are the Mac Power users, kind of being the automators today. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. If you want to get the ad-free extended version of the show and the more power users, you can sign up right there at relay.fm/MPU. Thank you to our sponsors today, Squarespace and Indeed. On more power users, I want to check in with Rose on home automation. She's always got some cool tricks up her sleeve, so we'll be sharing that today. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, folks.